In this nugget, you and I want to accomplish primarily two objectives. We want to make sure that we can keep our disks running smoothly, and we also want to understand what could go wrong with our disk system. When it comes to taking care of my disk, there's two things that I am going to do periodically. The first is to clean the disk up. I mean, we're always worried about storage space, and as you can see on my disk here, I'm, 3/4 full. So this is something that I'm concerned about because, of course, we know if we start to run low on disk space, performance of the Windows 10 machine is really going to suffer. So something I do periodically is disk cleanup, built right into Windows 10. So the disk cleanup app will launch here. And then I'm going to go and say, look, we want to clean up the system files as well. So it's going to say, all right, we'll add that to the list of items that can be cleaned up automatically on this drive for you. So we wait for it to scan for these system files that might be able to be cleaned up. And then we can go through, check every single box, and free up disk space. This is not that exciting as it's only 61 meg. And the reason why it's such a small amount that I'm freeing up right now is because this ran for me yesterday. And I'll show you how we can schedule this so that every Monday, that's how I have it functioning, it'll pop up and allow us to clean the disk. You see, the issue with me is I would definitely forget to do this for long periods of time. So the automation of launching this task is done through the task scheduler. So, and I lied, it's every Tuesday of the week. This is going to pop up my disk cleanup properties window so I can remember to clean up the drive on this system. Now, after cleaning up the disk, what I love to do is check the disk, and Windows 10 makes this a breeze. When we go to the Tools tab, there's the error checking functionality, and the beauty of this now is we don't have to reboot in order for this kind of passive scan to take place when it comes to error checking on our disk. If we want to do a more in-depth check of all the sectors and things of that nature, a reboot is required. But the basic error checking now, which will solve many disk problems, is done right from within the Windows 10 desktop. And I did pause my video there, but it was a pretty quick process, so that's great. The next thing that we want to do is make sure our disk is being optimized. So if we go into the properties of the C drive and we go back to that tools area, notice there's an optimize section. Windows 10 is so smart. It recognizes that I'm running solid state drives. It sees the system reserved partition and this other hidden volume partition right here. It knows it doesn't need to do anything with those, so it does not schedule any optimization of them. Kind of funny that it says needs optimization. We are not going to touch these partitions. It's the C drive that we're interested in. Notice it is by default scheduling the optimization of this drive. It recognizes that it's a solid state drive, so it optimizes it, and this does not involve defragmentation. Defragging an SSD is a bad idea, so Windows 10 is smart and it doesn't do that. Instead, it sends the SSD commands like the trim command and other various commands that will help optimize the solid state drive. If we were using a mechanical disk drive for our C drive, then it would be a whole different story. Microsoft would recognize that it's a mechanical disk and would be defragging it as part of the optimization process. Notice if you want to trigger the optimization right now for this solid state drive, you could with the optimize button. If you wanted to change the settings from weekly to some other frequency, you could as well. Now, what exact type of disk do we have and how is it performing? As far as performance goes, I'm going to table an in-depth discussion of that until we get into some of the more robust monitoring tools later on in this course. But for right now, a quick glimpse is going to be available thanks to none other than Task Manager. When you first open up Task Manager, of course, it might be in this very limited view. Click More Details and you get all these wonderful tabs. And one of those is the Performance tab. Notice there's a disk option. So you can see I'm running the Corsair Force GT solid state disk, and we can see we get some very quick, like, active or average response time statistics, read speeds and write speeds, and we can see what's going on as far as read and write disk activity right now on this disk. A lot's going on right now with transfers because I am currently making a CBT nugget. Pretty fascinating, and we are recording a lot of information to the disk. So This is a very, very powerful tool for a quick snapshot of performance. As I indicated, we'll get into more robust monitoring tools later on. Now, at this point, we're feeling great about the drive on my system, and that's awesome. I'm super happy about that. Understand that there's so much that could go wrong. We could have a logical failure. And this is what we are looking for and potentially repairing when we go into the tools like we did and we had it check that disk and we stayed right online during that check. Notice there could be bad sectors on the disk, and this is a disk check that you would need to reboot for. We didn't demonstrate that, so let me demonstrate that right now. How you would do that in a Windows 10 world is you would go to an elevated command prompt. So notice we are running the command prompt as an administrator, and we'll do the old-fashioned CHK DSK or check disk. And there is a bunch of switches here that you could utilize. What we're interested in is doing a check of the disk and a fixing of the disk for bad sectors in addition to logical issues. And that would be a check disk with the /F and /R. Notice what it's going to say. It's going to say, wait a minute, we need full access to the disk system. We can't do that because Windows is currently running. Do you want to schedule this the next time the system restarts? By the way, I don't want to do this check because if you do this again and again and again, I'm sure that's going to have a negative impact on the solid state disk. I'm pretty convinced we're in great shape with this disk system, so I would not run this check, but I did want to demonstrate this, of course, because the check disk from the elevated command prompt gives us so many more error checking options. Now, there's the mechanical failure that is so common. In fact, it'll happen eventually with your traditional mechanical hard disk drive. I mean, think of all of the moving parts that are inside that disk system. You have this spinning platter, you have this read-write head that's hovering over it, and one of the things that starts happening is the read-write head starts hitting the spinning platter at some point, and you literally hear this clanking noise coming from your disk. So mechanical failures are the big issues with those older hard drives. Electronic failures and firmware failures are still realities today for our solid state drives. And, this is just something we have to watch out for, and it could easily occur. Remember, there's an electronic circuit board that's with our mechanical disk drives as well as with our solid state drives that's got all the intelligence for making the drive system work, just like there's firmware with these that could fail. So those are issues we need to watch out for as well. Speaking of storage, if you want a lot more details on storage matters, just do a search on our website on storage, and one of the courses you'll come across is my EMC course. Now, this sounds like it would be EMC specific, but it's really not. Look at, if we come in here, we can see there's detailed nuggets on RAID and disk drive components and performance. Obviously, there's going to be nuggets in here that deal with solid state and storage area networking concepts. So plenty of additional content if you need more information on storage. So in this nugget, you and I took steps to maintain our storage system to keep it running smoothly. We also discussed what could go wrong with storage systems inside of Windows 10. And remember too, there are those tremendous resiliency options that we have. So in our storage spaces nugget, for instance, we saw how easy it would be to create a sophisticated three-way mirror using at least 5 physical disks so that we could have multiple disks fail and we wouldn't lose any data. And we know how easy it is to replace a failed disk within storage spaces. So keep that in mind as well. I hope this nugget was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.